Welcome back, everybody. My name is Franco. I'm here with Savannah Craven, very, very cool person that I got to meet recently. And Savannah, give us a little intro.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Savannah Craven, and I'm a full-time pro-life activist and social media content creator, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Savannah is Catholic. Savannah, you mind giving us a little bit like where are you at in your faith?
Absolutely. So my faith is super important to me. I would say that I'm closer to God than I ever have been. I was raised Catholic, but of course, like a lot of, I think, cradle Catholics, we're not really exactly appreciative of just what our parents are really doing for us until we get out into the real world and have our own experiences and realize that living without God close to you is really, really difficult. It's a lot harder than living with him. So I was going to college in New York City, very liberal arts college, and everybody around me really wasn't a Christian. And if they were a Christian, they would not talk about it. And during that time, I sort of tried to like push God away, and that was a really bad mistake. So then when I realized, why am I so depressed? Like, I'm living in the city I want to live in. Everything is great. I'm healthy. Why do I feel so upset? And then I realized after COVID had hit and I had to go back home to South Carolina when my school had shut down, the whole city shut down, I started to learn more about Christ and just exactly the stories. You know, I feel like I knew about God. I knew some things, but I really didn't know him or have a relationship with him. And so that's when I decided that it was time. It was time to develop a relationship. And that's when I truly gave my life to him. And haven't turned back.
Let's go. Awesome. Now you say you were like in you were in liberal arts in college?
Yes, I went to a musical theater school right in the heart of New York City.
Okay.
And that was like my dream school. It was a really great experience while I was there, but when all the wokeness started happening and everyone decided to like make up all these pronouns and genders during COVID, and then when I wanted to go back, of course, like the vaccine was mandated. They were wanting to make us dance with masks on. Like I was doing full production, like musical theater, singing, dancing, acting all at once. And that's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a Broadway actress. I had been I had been singing since I was a little girl. And this was the one school that I applied for because it was my dream school. And when I got in, it was like all my prayers had been answered. Everything I had worked for had been worth it. But I think my story is similar to what happened to a lot of other art students and just college students in general, is that their school just completely switched up. And I started to think about like, maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe this isn't where I'm supposed to be in life. But then I started researching other avenues, and I found organizations like Turning Point USA and Blexit. And through those organizations, I was able to meet a lot of like-minded individuals that were in the arts. So I did 2 professional productions with an amazing company called Brian Cloudis Experiences. And I was able to do a production of Oklahoma, the musical, with James O'Keefe, who is the founder of Project Veritas and OMG, O'Keefe Media Group. And so that was a really cool experience, just to be myself, be able to share my talents with other people that weren't going to just judge me because I was a Catholic conservative, right? And wasn't going to try to murder me. So that was nice. But long story short, I did that, and then I felt called to be a pro-life activist. So that's kind of where I'm at.
There you go. I didn't know you were so artsy. That's cool. Look at that. Yes, with the vaccine, did you end up getting vaccinated? Hey, it's Franco. I'm cutting 14 minutes of footage to not run a higher risk of getting this whole video taken down by YouTube.
My best friend, she has a 5-year-old, and her kid has never had any sort of like medication, vaccine, anything. Even when she has a headache, she's like very natural about it. We'll use herbs and things. Won't just give her like Aleve, Tylenol. And her daughter is so healthy, so full of life. And of course, I'm not trying to speak for all children, but it really does go to show that I believe that God does make us in his image, and he's not putting us on this earth so we have to just fill our bodies with poisons and pills and potions and all these things. We're meant to be healthy creatures. Like he didn't put us on this earth for it to be so difficult, like for us to just walk outside. We need to have a vaccine. We need to have this, that. And it's just so crazy that so many people, I feel like, have made the pharmaceutical company their God and just bowing down. Oh, well, the doctors say. It's like doctors are people too, you know, and doctors make mistakes. There are amazing doctors out there that save lives, of course, every single day. But I don't think people realize that you are part of the experiment. Like, you are the ones that in 20 years, if this happens where we show up on TV and it says, you know, if you took the from 2020 to 2023, you were entitled to financial compensation. I don't want to have to see that. And people don't realize that that's what happens when these things come out on the market. They don't have the time and the energy or the money, you know, they don't want to put it into actually doing an experiment. They want to just experiment on the public, and people just handed that over. And I think it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I'm going to have to censor a lot of parts in there. But I totally agree. I do acknowledge that every body works to a different degree. Like it has different things. So some people might be sensitive to dairy, like me. Others aren't. You know, some people are sensitive to certain things, different allergies, whatever. I totally understand that, right? But that's not to say that there aren't constant variables that will remain within every single human body, because we are all human at the end of the day. So there might be some subjectiveness to how our bodies work, but there's also going to be large identical factors of how our bodies work. So like that, I definitely want to add that in, right? Because some people go to the extreme, like, oh no, every single person's body is different. You know, it's like
biologically we are the same. I mean, we are the human race, right? Our bodies are meant to work the same. They're meant to work healthfully, efficiently, and of course, like if you're overweight, underweight, have some sort of condition, you might have a little bit, you know, difficulty with digesting certain foods. Like people are like sometimes, you know, they have issues with dairy or they have celiac disease, things like that. But biologically, like we're all pretty identical. Yeah.
Unless you're, different sex, but apart from that, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We are identical. Yeah. We are. Anyways, okay. So now I want to talk about this. With your Catholicism, I know last time we went on call, you were telling me a little bit about how in the conservative movement, you saw like a lot of stuff that was maybe not so pleasing to the Catholic faith. Like you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think what I was telling you is that there is, I would say, hatred for Mother Mary, just from like the Protestant stance. And this is just all my opinions, all my own experiences, just to get that out of the way. Disclaimer. For sure. But yeah. And for me as a Catholic, I've always like looked up to Mother Mary. Of course, we don't worship her, okay? But we do honor her, because the thing is that God chose her specifically. God could have made Jesus from somebody that didn't believe. He could have made him from water. He could have made him from the dust on the ground like he did Adam, but he chose Mary specifically. And for people to say that she is just an ordinary woman or it could have been anybody, it's like you're kind of like downplaying. I mean, imagine speaking about somebody else's mother like that. Imagine how Jesus would feel if you were just saying his mom was just ordinary. And when I started to realize that this was like an ongoing theme of people that weren't Catholic just sort of brushing away Mary and acting like she wasn't important, that's when I felt like I wanted to speak up more and just become more educated about my faith and why I do honor Mary and why she is so important to Jesus's story. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why I started praying the rosary every single day. I just felt like it was really bringing me closer to God and Mary as well as my spiritual mother. And yeah, it really shocked me, because growing up, I had never really heard about that. I was even starting to tell my mom, like, I'm getting these comments, Catholicism is of the devil. You worship Mary, saying that Mother Mary is nothing. Like, I don't know if you saw that video of that one, like, preacher guy. I think his name is Ryan, but he went around. I think he did a reaction to it. Like, Mother Mary is nothing. Like, she doesn't care about you. And I'm like, oh, it's like, I could never imagine saying anything like that or people even thinking that way, you know? And it just blew my mind. I don't know if you've had like the same experience, but that's pretty much been mine.
Well, I mean, like I definitely when I was anti-Catholic when I came into Christianity. I was very anti-Catholic.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about that. So when I came into Christianity, right, I was getting. I got evangelized by a non-denominational pastor. He didn't really instill anything anti-Catholic in me. I think he was actually like, he wasn't really, I didn't really feel that much anti-Catholicism from him. But the people that I met that were part of his ministry, you know, of course, when you go into Protestant circles, there's really no unification in what they believe. Like there's just, you know, there's a lot of vague stuff. Like one Protestant might believe something totally different than another Protestant, right? Especially if you're in a non-denominational circle, right? So some people that I met in his with the people that he was leading, these two guys. They're still like I consider them friends. I still like them a lot. But one of them was really into conspiracy theories, and he's very I would say he's very anti-Catholic. And I would start and for me, right, I was like, yeah, you know, Catholics don't read their Bibles, because I was raised with a Catholic family. You know, there was, you know, my mom is Catholic, my dad's Catholic. I would say, like, you know, and a lot of people, especially Hispanics, are raised in culturally Catholic households. They're not like practicing very much, but they're just very culturally Catholic, which I think is like, this might be a hot take, but I personally think that that's way better than having a vigorous Protestant nation. If you have cultural Catholics, is always going to be a lot better, which is a different topic. I'll get into that maybe some other time. Yeah. But anyways, from there, I was like, really, I was like, yeah, I looked at my mother, I looked at my dad. I'm like, you guys don't read your Bibles. Like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about and all that stuff, right? And I talked to other Catholics, and like, I was asking like just questions that were kind of weird, like, oh, is Jesus the Son of God or God himself? Right, just because I just was curious, and they would tell me to answer that. I was like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like one of them said, like, oh, Jesus is the Son of God. That's it. And I'm like, what? now that I'm Catholic, I'm like, what? Wait, we believe both, right? Son of God and that he is God, right? So it just goes to show that a lot of these Catholics did not know what the Catholic faith taught, and I was using that to generalize the Catholicism as a whole, and especially because it was so like I was raised with that. I was like, yeah, no, Catholicism is not it. Definitely, like, you know, I was like making the argument that, you know, the only reason that Christianity has blood on his hands is because of Catholicism. I always mention that. And yeah, I just was super anti-Catholic. There was at one point that I was like, hold on, right? The upside down cross, right? That's demonic. And when it's not demonic, right? It's St. Peter's cross. But back then I thought it was demonic. And I was like, wait, when you do the sign of the cross, don't you, if you do it in a way, don't you technically do it in an upside down cross?
I had someone tell me that the other day.
Yeah. And I told my anti-Catholic friend about that, and he was like, do the Catholics make that up? And I'm like, I think so. Oh, look at that. So it was just, it was so dumb. It was so dumb. Yeah. And yeah, but anyway, I was really anti-Catholic. But then after that, I had a lot of, I'll just keep this short because I want to get into the other topics, but God placed a lot of wonderful peers in my life that challenged me on my Protestantism. And the more I learned about it, I didn't really put up much of a struggle personally, because I think I was just searching so much for truth. And I was at a point in my life that I was like, how do I know if this interpretation of the Bible is correct versus this other person's interpretation? And I was getting a lot of different parts, and into a very panicked state of my life. I was like looking into this Bible verse, and I was like, the part of like, you know, confess to one another so that you may be healed. And I was like, well, who do you confess to, right? If you lust after a woman, for example, like some random woman in the street, do you confess to that woman, or who do you confess to, right? It's like, or do you confess to your boy who like some degenerate friend of yours that's going to not give a Christ? Like he's probably gonna be like, oh, dude, you suck at your imagination, or I don't know, whatever, right? He's probably gonna say something degenerate. Or do you tell your mother, who might look at you differently, or who do you tell? Like who like, it doesn't specify who exactly you confess to. At that point, you're going to extra biblical sources that are not in the Bible to interpret what that verse means, right? So at that point, I was like, okay, who do I confess it to? And in this part of my life, I was like really, really having a lot of trouble with a lot of like anxiety, like with something that I had done in the past that I just I had no idea who to confess that to, and I really wanted to follow God. I really wanted to do right by Him. And one thing that my counselor, who eventually ended up red pilling me on Catholicism, he said this that will always stay with me like for my whole life. Like I always remember this. There are some things that are not meant for a person's ears, but only for the confession room. And that just spoke volumes. I'm like, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe, okay. Like I still didn't go to confession immediately. I was just like, maybe there's some truth to that. But I eventually did. And the priest pretty much told me what the Catholics were telling me is like, yeah, you need to confess this to like this specific person. You just make sure you're determined to never do it again. Fully repentant. I'm like, yeah, I definitely am. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, that's literally it. Yeah. So, which is true, right? And from there, I just kind of learned more and more about Catholicism. I joined a Bible study that was about Catholicism. I know I'm talking about my testimony right now. This must be about you.
No, it's beautiful. It's awesome.
But anyways.
Yeah, for me, definitely, I was also struggling like with the same thing about something I had done in my past. And I just I had been to mass, but I knew that I needed to like confess, right? And for me, I think that's just one of the most beautiful things that God gave us is that we're able to have our sins truly forgiven and then eat his actual body and blood. And when I had been talking about like my Protestant friends, this is like sounds so funny, but even as I was growing up, because I was only in the Catholic Church, I didn't realize that other people did not like know that this was like the real body and blood of Christ, right? And so I was like, how sad is it that these people are missing out on this gift? That this is like, this is literally Jesus's body and people don't believe it. And it's even 69% of Catholics don't believe that that Jesus's body and blood is present in the Eucharist. And so I was like, wow, this is insane. We are seriously having we need a revival. And that's what we're in the middle of right now, right? Is trying to have this revival where people can truly realize these gifts that God has given us. And also just the fact that I'm obviously pro-life and it's super duper important to me. It's something that's the closest to my heart, is something I want to see in my life. Is I want abortion to be abolished, and God helping me on this journey is really the reason that I'm here, because with all the evil that I see, all the hatred online, in person, the times where I've been mocked and physically assaulted, it's like, when I have God, I don't take any of it personally, because I know that these people hated Jesus before me. I know that what they're saying to me, it's not really about me. I get people ask me, how do you go out there and do that? Like, don't you just resent these people? Don't you hate these people? And before I gave myself to Christ, I think that I did hate these people. Like, I would look at these people as monsters, as inhuman. How in the world can you sit there and just be so I love abortion, or shout my abortion, or, how can you just sit there and know the evils of this? Because a lot of them do know what an abortion looks like, and they're still just unapologetically for it. And then when I changed my perspective, I was like, these people need me the most, right? This is maybe the first time that they've encountered somebody like me with my opinion. And of course, there are people that are bad on both sides. There are pro-lifers that do shout outside clinics and call people sluts, call people horrible things, tell them they're going to hell. And I'm like, what if that's been their only experience? And when I'm going to the sidewalk, when I switched my perspective, I'm like, I'm going to talk to every single person today. Like, this is the first time I'm explaining why I'm pro-life. Like, this is the first time I've ever heard a pro-abortion person come up to me and make this claim. Because, they only have 5-6 different arguments, right? It's not like a whole lot.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm like, I'm just going to act like I have never talked about this before and see how it goes. And it's so much more patience and joy talking to these people has come out of those experiences. And I'm not going to say sometimes it's not hard, because sometimes we're just going in circles and circles. But after switching that perspective, I was like, wow, this is really how Christ would do it. if he was having this conversation, he would just be acting like this is the first time anybody has ever said this to him. And just truly recognizing that person as another human being. Because I think before, like I said, I was looking at them like they were just possessed and they weren't really people. And asking someone their name, saying like, hi, I'm Savannah, what's your name? Even though this person is literally advocating for child sacrifice, I treat them as that they are a real person, because they are. And they are made in the image of God, against what anybody wants to say they are, just like you and I. And it's so important to just treat them as they're just a normal person.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They've never heard this before. So
yeah, no, exactly. I think that, and that's honestly, like, it's fun. It's crazy you mention this, because I one time went to a counter, or it wasn't set to be a counter protest, but it became one because of the people that I was there with. I don't know if you saw this counter protest that was on July 4th last year, where like people were there were a bunch of abortionist protesters in front of the Supreme Court, and I was there with a couple of friends, and they ended up like really taunting the crowd into like a whole counter protest essentially. And in my head, I'm like, this is dumb. Like this is like I know like the argument of, yeah, we're gonna show that we are there and stuff like that, but it's like, one thing is, showing out and, having like nice banners and stuff, and one thing is like yelling at each other in a counter protest. I think that's so unproductive. And that's why and funny enough, like after that, when I went away from there, we were talking to a few abortionist people, pro-abortion people, and we were actually like trying to have a good conversation with them. Like at least I was, me and like maybe like this other person. And, but yeah, but at first it was just a lot of just like shouting over each other. And I'm like, this is really dumb. Like I was trying to like talk patiently towards this person that was shouting right at my face, and I was having a lot of patience because I was telling you, I can have the most patience for like the most feminist pro-abortion person, but when it comes to like other things like Protestantism, I just start twitching or whatever. but like she was shouting at my face, and I was like totally patient towards that. First off, we could probably get in danger. Second off, you're not exactly winning souls here, right? And I've seen a lot of Christians that make content by taunting degenerates, I shouldn't say degenerates, but by taunting people that are lost. And I honestly don't see any productive value to that besides that Christian getting viral clicks and like more content for the echo chamber and profit off of that, while the person that they interacted with in that video is probably now going to be more pushed away from the Christian faith. This is not to say that like we shouldn't be firm and like, call out prideful people and, do it with like a firm voice when the time calls for it. But at the same time, there needs to be some sort of level of restraint that you're not going out there for clicks and views just because you won't need content. And because like, it's like, there's a way to go about it, like how Jesus went about it. And there's a way to go about it, how somebody that's dumb would go about it, and somebody that's like only caring about like because the reason why we're trying to spread the truth is because we actually care for these people. We want them to turn to Christ. If you have that intention, how can you logically produce a thought that could push you to try to anger these people for views if you really are willing the good for that person to turn to Christ?
Right. It becomes more about like who can be the loudest rather than am I really presenting like the true message and relaying this as best as I can. Yeah. Because the thing is when you try to just be loud, that's what they do. That's what the other side does, is that they try to be loud and flamboyant, and they try to be the biggest people there. But it's like, as Christians and pro-lifers, is that really what Jesus would do? Like, would he just try to show out and be the loudest and most obnoxious there just to get people's attention? Absolutely not. Yeah. It's sometimes the quietest person in the room that makes the most influence and makes the biggest difference. And so try that, as frustrating and as hard as it can be sometimes, you just kind of got to sit back and watch. But when I am like that, rather than, waving my sign, trying to be, seen, people are more open to having an actual conversation and saying, like, why are you out here on the sidewalk? What are you doing? Do you really hate women? Do you really want to take away their rights? And it's like, no. And then we actually can have a real conversation like normal people, which, ever since COVID happened, I feel like really it's probably since like 2016, but people have not been able to do that.
Yeah.
You can't have a different opinion. And we're seeing that in schools. We're seeing that at people's jobs. We're seeing that all over social media. I think every single person who has more of a conservative viewpoint, has been somehow taken off social media, shadow banned, censored, and I'm just over it. I'm really over it.
No, for sure.
I don't believe that hate speech is a real thing. I believe that all speech is free speech. Say whatever the heck you want to say. That is what we have in this country. That's a right, and it's like, if I don't agree with something, I have the right to speak against it publicly, speak out against it, or just keep swiping. Why can't we just keep swiping,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I'm personally not a huge free speech supporter.
You're not. Okay.
I'm not. I don't think, this is my attitude towards cancel culture pretty much. So just so you know, I think that cancel culture, I view it as power, right? Cancel culture is essentially power, right? It's like boycotting, stuff like that, right? I think that's always going to exist. Just like a gun is always going to exist now that it's been created, just how muscles are always going to exist, right? Yeah. It's been created, it's now always going to exist. So the issue isn't like how to get rid of it, so to say, because then I feel like it's kind of trying to find a sort of utopian thing. But I think that it's now about who should be using that power. Because of course, when we look at Superman, we're not complaining that he has all that power because we know he has a good heart and it's in the right hands, etc. When we look at Megatron or I don't know, some guy that's evil, yeah, we don't want him to have any of that power. I know some people might be like, well, aren't you like a leftist that, it's like, they want to censor speech. You want to censor speech back to them. I'm like, personally, I honestly think, yeah, we should, because that's what we used to do with communists back when the conservatives had most of the culture. And now if you see how the tables have turned, that's what the liberals and communists are doing to us. And the reason being is because that is, understandably, that is how you are able to maintain the power and control of the culture, because free speech in essence is it is a liberal idea to a certain extent. Like, I'm not saying that you can't have free thought or whatever. Yeah, you can think whatever you want, but even in America, we do have free speech to a huge extent, but there are some things that it's not totally absolute. Like, for example, I can't yell fire in a crowded theater because that can harm people, right? That can be dangerous, right? I can't do that. There's a lot of other gray areas that you were not allowed to use free speech in. I think that if you are, if you simply, I think there's degrees to it. If you want to debate about Catholicism, sure, I don't really care about censoring you. But if you want to talk about apologetics for indoctrinating children into switching their gender and castrating themselves, and there's different levels to it.
I definitely understand what you're saying for sure. I just believe, obviously, if you're saying something and saying it to an impressionable group of people that can actually go and harm themselves with what you're saying, I think that's a little bit different. And of course, if it's involving children, I do believe that it should be censored. But with the whole thing of people that are here that are college students, whatever, they think that they believe in communism, that socialism is the way, they should be able to say that, right? Because that's their opinion. But it should not be pushed onto children, because obviously that can affect their mindset. The thing is when we start going into what type of speech we can censor, even if in our eyes it is incorrect or it goes against our country and how it's set up, they're going to start being able to censor us, because as we get different people into leadership, we're seeing with people like Biden, who are big supporters of the LGBT community, they're making their organization, their movement very prominent, and they're getting more rights than even natural born women, or whatever they call cis women and things like that. And so it really honestly just depends on who you have in power, I think, is depending on what speech you can say or not. And I don't see that as correct. I don't see that as right. And I don't think that's what our country was built on.
I definitely don't think that's what our country was built on. I guess that gets into the point of like, the origins of the country and like the religion of the founding fathers and stuff like that, which I would argue were largely, well, they weren't Catholic. I'll just say that. But that gets to the whole other topic. But I want to talk about abortion more specifically. With like a few things with abortion. Like I know there's a lot of questions that usually people don't know how to like retaliate against. Like right to control my body. Baby is not viable. Baby cannot feel pain. Like all that stuff. Like, what would you say the strongest argument against abortion would be?
Yeah, so I just hear all the time, it's my body, my choice. I think that's the main thing. And the thing is that, yes, your body, your choice. You want to do whatever you want to do with your body. That's great. But once the actions that you take on your body start to affect somebody else, that's when your rights stop. That's why we say, don't do drugs. And when you're pregnant, don't drink alcohol. There's the same things with, don't get in a car drunk with a bunch of people and start driving, because your action, even though you're doing it, could affect somebody else. It's the same thing as the reason why we can't smoke within 20 to 100 feet of a hospital or a building. Because the thing is, there are people sick inside of a hospital that your cigarette smoke could drift on in there and it could harm somebody. So even though you're smoking the cigarette, your action of smoking the cigarette could also affect somebody else. And of course, they'll get into the whole, well, it's part of my body. It's just a fetus. Okay, what is a fetus? It's the term, it's Latin for offspring. That usually cuts them off right there.
There you go.
Just like people don't know what words mean. It's really, really sad. But the thing is that we do recognize that it's a different person and it's a different organism, whatever you want to call it, because we have to remove it when we're aborting it. So if it is part of your body, is it just like removing a part of your body? No. Do you have a fetus bone inside of you? Is there like some organ called the fetus? No. It's a separate entity that comes from a sperm and an egg that cease to exist on their own once they are connected and united. And now they have a separate set of DNA that has never existed before and will never exist again. It's not, you can't repeat it, right? And once you destroy it, that's it. It's gone forever. But a huge issue with these people is why they don't look at it as a human being, why they don't look at it as valuable, is because they don't value themselves. I often hear with these comments like, oh, well, you can't like abort something, or I didn't decide to be here and I wish I was aborted. And I feel so sad when I hear that, because it's like, you wish you were aborted. You wish that your mother would have killed you. That's a serious issue. And so we ask ourselves, like, why are people so pro-abortion? Why are they so unapologetically just pro-baby killing? They get so violent with it. I don't know if any of you guys have seen my video, or if you saw it, where the girl at Hunter College came up, took our fetal models, ripped them up, chewed them in her mouth, then came back a couple hours later with the fetal models attached to barbed wire that she had speared through their head. And she had taken like some sort of red substance and put it around the parts where she had speared the body. What? And so you recognize that this is something that can bleed. It looks like a baby. You're clearly making an act of violence against this thing, this person, but then you sit here and say it's just a fetus. Why is there so much hatred for human beings that look different than us? Why is there so much hatred for babies and children? I mean, there's videos out here of people saying that kids should not have rights until they're able to walk or till they're able to speak. It's like, that's a very, very dangerous way to look at a group of people that are so vulnerable. But it's all about power. It really, that's what it is it's just controlling the masses. And once we have less people to control, it's going to be so much easier for these powerful people in society and in government to create essentially one group of people that only think how they want them to think. Therefore, they can control them much easier.
I think it also has to do that. I also think it also has like a lot to do with how sexually degenerate our society is, because abortion is the ultimate form of contraception, to the point that, because contraception, what does it do? Contraception takes away the procreative aspect of sex. If all fails, the condom fails, if the pill fails, the ultimate way to avoid that procreation is to just kill what got procreated. That way you can finally that's the ultimate form of taking away procreation from sex. And a lot of people, I've been hearing this argument saying, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy, which just shows how like contraception, I know not many people are talking about this, but contraception really was the domino that the domino that knocked all the other dominoes into what we see nowadays with abortion. Because the moment when we try to take away the procreative aspect of sex, away from sex, then it's just logical that the logical conclusion to that is going to be to whatever means you're going to be able to achieve that end. And that, to the point where you kill the very child that you procreated because you don't want to have made your sex, including to have had your sex include procreation. So like I know some people in the pro-life movement, they say, wear a condom, don't get an abortion, wear a condom. No, that's literally like adding fuel to the fire. Like that's literally what started this.
Because they're literally like designed to fail. I mean, the condom industry, the birth control industry, the abortion industry, it all feeds into one. Because the condom didn't work. Okay, well, then you have abortion. Oh, your birth control didn't work. Oh, we'll give you an abortion then. Everything just goes into that. Yeah. And sex is so devalued. People act like it's a walk in the park. They don't realize that even if it's not, you don't even have to be Christian or have any sort of religious views to know that sex is not just like a walk in the park. You're literally chemically bonding with somebody and you are now attached to that person. People don't get that, right? And it's something that happens within your body. It's something that happens within your brain. And every single time you do that, you are connecting with that person in a way that, I would say it as like you're making marital vows to somebody without actually saying it, right? And when you don't make those marital vows, it's not gonna work out.
That's true. That is very true. Yeah, it's like, because sex, it's seen like as such a recreational activity nowadays. It's lost so much of its, it's a sacred act. It's like the act that's meant to create life. And our society has largely degraded it to just, feeling good with another person using another person's anatomy. That's it. Right. Not to like that, because before I remember I heard this one Catholic talk about before, if a man told a woman that he wants to have sex with her, the woman could rightly assume that, this man wants to be a father to my children and spend the rest of his life with me. Whereas nowadays, if you say that to a woman, she can immediately and correctly assume, this guy probably just wants an orgasm. That's that's literally it. And that's just I think that's honestly just really disgusting how the fact that it really does objectify women to a huge part. Because it's if you're removing the literal because if the woman becomes just something that a man can just get a release of pleasure from without including the possibility of procreation, then that essentially objectifies the woman to some sort of object that the man can just derive pleasure from. It doesn't include the uniqueness of what a woman is that she can give life. It takes that away. It takes that uniqueness away, because any object can give you that sexual pleasure pretty much. You can whether you want to use, whether it's a hand, whether it's, I'm not going to get into the specifics. We get it, but you know what I mean? Anything, you can derive sexual pleasure from anything, but what makes a woman so unique is that she can give life. So when you decide to take away the possibility of procreation away from that, via condoms, via birth control, via abortion, you are essentially objectifying a woman to an object, which is disgusting. Right. And that's why, and like a lot of people in liberal countries might say, why are men becoming so less, why is chivalry so dead? Why are there less gentlemen in the world, right? It's like, because if men won't even be gentlemen and won't even be chivalrous when it comes to sex, they won't even hold the sacred act of sex to the honor that it should be due and distort it, how can you expect them to do other things that are of less sacred value?
Yeah. And they look down on fertility and act like it's something getting in the way of living your life and being free, when actually it's the greatest gift that a woman can have is, being able to create a child, like grow another human being in your body. Why is that looked as something that is like oppressive? It's so sad. People think that they have to, at 12 years old, doctors will say, oh, let's put you on birth control. Let's stop your period. It's like, it's not normal to not have a period. It's not normal or healthy to have a period every couple of months. And when you're on this hormonal birth control, you're not actually having a real period when you bleed every month. It's not a real period. But many women aren't told that. And we know that the side effects of these pills and of these birth controls are literally like the size of a dictionary. You just keep unfolding the paper. And people are on this, women are on this for 20, 30 years a lot of the time. And then they finally meet someone, they get married and they want to have a kid, and then they wonder why they can't get pregnant. It's like, well, because you've been suppressing one of your greatest gifts since before you even finished puberty. And that's normal, right? Yeah. But then they say that we're crazy for saying that, oh, don't have sex unless you're married or, want to like have a family with this person. Yeah. And, just be safe. Like they think that we're crazy. Right. And naturally family planning, they're like, well, that doesn't work. It actually does work. It's worked for years, centuries, actually. And they're never even taught that. I didn't know about that when I was in school.
Yeah. Natural family planning, which is, for those that don't know, that's pretty much, planning out with your spouse, when you're going to do the deed, and stuff like that. Right. It's like some people like genuinely can't process that in their head. They think that like that's impossible because they're so addicted to sex, addicted to pornography, that they just cannot process that like, that's a very, very available option. And it's not that hard. But so many men nowadays are so addicted to porn. And, of course, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of sex addicts nowadays, of course, as well, that they just can't process that. It's insane. Right. It's insane how sexually degenerate our society has become to think that to think that natural family planning is not realistic. It's totally realistic.
It is. And it's so horrible. It's like even hearing people that at the different events that I go to and just being out, in the world, people talk about sex like it's so casual. Like I have friends that will just be like, I wonder, like tonight's going to be the night. And just people will talk like that. And I'm like, how can you I feel like you're using that person. You're just looking at that person as like, well, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Yeah. Do you know this person's birthday? Do you know what their favorite color is? Do you know like if they've ever been out of the country? Like, what do they like to do?
I know she likes to go to the gym.
Like, can you name anything interesting about this person that like isn't physical?
Yeah.
And really like ask yourself that, like, are you looking at this person as your brother or sister in Christ? Are you trying to get this person closer to heaven? Are you trying to get this person into heaven?
Exactly.
And the thing is, what's so magical about waiting until marriage is if you guys don't end up getting married, there's people that literally will get engaged and then they will break off the engagement. And even if you're engaged, some people say, oh, wait till we're engaged. What if you guys break off the engagement and then you had already given yourselves to each other like husband and wife? And what are you going to do then? You're not with this person anymore. It's like, was that bringing them closer to Christ? Was that getting them closer to heaven? And I feel like when you start looking at it like that, and especially it's people do it, when you see somebody on the street, you think, oh, wow, they're very attractive. Like, oh, maybe they're hot, they're sexy or whatever. It's like that person has a name. That person has a mom and a dad and they have a whole life. Look at them as your brother or your sister. Yeah. And I swear, like, you'll have just like a different outlook on life. You really will. And you'll have so much more respect for people. But our society has just been conditioned to just look at all the visual and just think about like, oh, how hot this person is, or is this person going to like me? Do they like my body? Do they like what I'm wearing? It's like, I want to know, like, you know, what movie do you want to watch on Halloween? Like,
who's your favorite saint?
Who's your favorite saint? Things like that. You know, what's your favorite food at Thanksgiving? Like, let's learn about each other rather than just looking at.
What do you think about the vaccine?
Exactly. Are you pro-life? The first question I ask people. No, not really. But
my first question is like usually like religion. Honestly, that's like the most important one. I would say religion is really going to be the thing that shapes like the rest of your life, because it's like what you believe reality to be. So
exactly.
Yeah, and of course you got to pick the correct one. You know.
Yes, you do. I think it's so important to date somebody who believes the same thing as you.
Yes. No, we lost Savannah. Savannah.
Religion, where it just makes all the difference. Oh no.
Oh,
what happened?
You're back. Okay, you're back. You're back. Did you hear me yelling your name?
Yeah, I did. I got scared for a second.
Okay, we're back. You just lagged a lot.
We're back.
Just then. Okay, let's go.
Weird.
You were saying?
Okay. You're still lagging. That's weird. Well, what I was saying was I think it's very different when you are with like a Catholic partner, when you're Catholic, and just somebody having like these core values. I could never date somebody that was not pro-life. Like, it's just so important to me, and you have to be on that page. And of course, there's things that, you know, I can teach that person. Like, maybe they don't know exactly all the arguments, or they don't know about ectopic pregnancies, or, you know, the specifics, but you need to have value of human life, and you need to be able to value the most vulnerable people of our society, which are the preborn.
Yeah. And that's honestly like talking about the dating aspect of this it's actually very, very important that like, not just that they agree on the same values, but that they also agree like, well, I mean, I guess agreeing on religion would be agreeing on the same values, but like the religion part, like I need to stress that really, really harshly, because if you're Catholic and you date other Catholics, like that's the beauty about dating in Catholicism, because you already know that if the other person is Catholic, they are going to, like, if they're a practicing Catholic, if they're like actually a practicing Catholic, you already know that they already agree with you on abortion. They already agree with you on contraception. They will agree with you if they don't know the take on that yet. Because if you have a Catholic that's obedient to the church, they're going to agree with everything that the church says, you know, about abortion, contraception, pornography, everything, right? Whereas if you are in any other religion like Buddhism or Islam or Protestantism, right, there is no, at least to my knowledge, there is no like unifying office that can establish these core values that is needed in a marriage. You cannot find a unifying thing between all these people besides like a few vague dogmas like, you know, believe in Christ and you'll be saved, right? Very vague stuff, right? Whereas in Catholicism, it's very explicit. We have the church teachings, the dogmas, the doctrines, the ecumenical councils, the papal decrees. You can find all our core all our essential doctrines and dogmas in these things, right? Yes. With the Pope being a living teacher to clarify anything if needed. So you can like, an obedient Catholic will agree with you with literally everything. That's why it's so much easier to date within Catholic circles. And that's why it's like, honestly, when I think of people dating outside of Catholicism, I'm like, dang, that's a battlefield. You have you're essentially playing Russian roulette with your heart right there, because it's like, what if you fall so hard for this girl and turns out she doesn't agree with you on contraception or on masturbation, right? Masturbation being a very, very, it's a mortal sin. But there are some Christians. I've heard a lot of Protestant pastors, popular Protestant YouTubers that talk about, well, sometimes masturbation can be fine in some cases, right? Let's like. What
are those cases?
I'll send you something. I'll send you. I'll send you a video. I'd
like to know.
I don't remember right now, but like, I don't like to remember dumb stuff.
Sure.
but yeah, I only remember good stuff. But yeah, no, I will send you that video. It's Trent Horn made a good reaction video to it, to like a lot of Protestant, like iconic Protestant pastors that were talking about masturbation, how like it's like, you know, it's not that, it's actually fine if in certain cases, right?
Wow.
So if you can go to a girl and like maybe like, oh yeah, maybe abortion, yeah, I don't support abortion, but maybe other people should support it. Like, it's fine. I'm not going to intrude on other people's beliefs on abortion, right? And she will try to use Jesus and the Bible to promote her talking points. You can use your Bible verse as much as you can, but the Bible is a perfect book. Keep in mind, the Bible is a perfect book, but it's not the only source of truth. Like I talked about with that other verse of the, you know, confess to one another so that maybe you may be healed. You're not, it's sometimes you have to go to exterior sources from the Bible to correctly interpret it.
Exactly. And that's why tradition is so important, because like, do people really think that all that Jesus did and all that Jesus said is just in the Bible? Like, there is so many other things that he did during his ministry that wasn't written down. Yeah. Right. And there's so many things that happened that were written down. It's like all the things that Jesus did, like we can't just sit here and just name them off our fingers. Right. Yeah. So that's why it's so important to listen to people that were there and the history. Hold on, my cat is deciding to.
And also the people that were ordinated by the apostles that Jesus gave authority to, the succession of apostles. That's insanely important. Jesus gave authority to the apostles to lead the church on his behalf, specifically Peter as the leader, as the Pope, the Bishop of Rome. And of course, we're going to want to follow those who succeeded them, right? Properly ordained and succeeded them. It's not as if some random person is going to come up and be like, okay, yeah, here's my opinion on the Bible. If you like my opinion on my if you like my interpretation of the Bible, then like that's the truth. It's like, no, it's like we have to follow what our authorities that have been placed by Jesus Christ are saying. If the authorities are saying contraception is bad, then contraception is bad. If they're saying that abortion is evil and must be banned, then abortion must be evil, is evil and must be banned. You have to agree with all of that, right? All the dogmas, all these doctrines, you have to obey to the authority that Jesus Christ has specifically established to guide us in the church. When you don't have that, that's where you see all that disagreement of very, very core issues that can affect your salvation, like pornography, like abortion, like masturbation, like all of these things that are grave sins.
Correct.
Anything else you want to add there?
No, I think you wrapped it up really well.
Gotcha. Well, apart from that, are there any burning thoughts that you have that you wanna add here?
I don't think so. I think it's just important, again, like on a dating aspect, to find someone that not only understands why you want to live out these truths and why you want to live in a particular way, but also wanting to live it out themselves, right? It's one thing for people to just say, oh yeah, I understand like why you want to wait for marriage, or I understand why you're against abortion. No, like I want you to actually understand it and then want to live it out as well. And I think that's where there's a difference there, and where some people are like, well, we don't believe in the same things, but like he understands it. That's like, difficult waters there that you are trying to swim across.
Because how are you gonna raise your children? You got to think of the children.
Yeah,
if you're in a relationship, if you're dating, the logical conclusion of dating is to get married. Essentially, that's why you're dating. If you're dating to have fun, then you're kind of being selfish and playing with people's hearts like that.
I think
look at that cute kid.
Sometimes people don't really think further than that. Yeah. I am so sorry. She's so rude.
Shows attention.
Disrespectful. But people don't really think further than that. They just meet someone and they're like, oh yeah, I like them. And it's like, okay, well, what's going to come after that? Yeah. And then when people don't really think through those things, they don't really think in the long run or look toward the future, then everything just becomes more normalized, and like it just happens. Like, oh yeah, well, we just figured we'd move in together. We just figured, we just started sleeping together, just things like that. We just decided to join our bank accounts, and it's like, you're missing
you're missing the point of marriage. You're missing the reason why men and women are to join bodies. That's the whole point.
And why are you willing to do all of these other things, but then you don't want to put a ring on it? That's like a red flag to me. Is how are you gonna join bank accounts with this person? You might even have a kid with this person, sleep with this person, and move in with this person, but you won't get married. Why?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I would say my guess is that they just don't know what the point of marriage is for. Because again, marriage is there to bring the first. I think if I remember correctly, the first purpose of marriage is to help the spouses ripen each other for heaven, push each other towards heaven. The secondary, I believe, is to have kids, right? Because of course, the Josephite marriage of Mary and Joseph, that they didn't have sex, but yet they pushed that towards marriage and towards heaven. And of course, Mary was mother of Jesus, right? Through the Jesus conception. And there are Josephite marriages that have happened through history where, like a man and a woman, Catholics, they come together and they're like, okay, we're going to have a Josephite marriage. We're going to not have kids, but we're going to abstain from sex, right? Because that's the whole point of sex, to have kids and have a Josephite marriage to put each other towards heaven, right? So definitely, like, I think a lot of people.
Correct though? Like, is that okay, or is that like?
No, that's okay.
It's okay.
Josephite marriages are actually very holy marriages. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you just can't have sex though, because if you're having sex and you're not trying to have kids, and you're like using contraception to not have kids, that's not good. But if you're having a Josephite marriage, like the marriage that Mary and Joseph had, right, that's definitely different. And I believe there's actually some saints that ended up doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine, because you're actually like abstaining from sex and all that stuff. But yeah, but back to my main point, marriage has gotten so secularized because people think that, I just get married because I just really like this person and they make me feel good or whatever, and romance and living out together and that's it, right? It's like, no, the whole point is to push each other towards heaven, to help shape each other towards heaven. That's the whole point, right? So it's like marriage as a whole has gotten so secularized.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just, I see a lot of the time as people, they just want the wedding. They don't actually want the marriage. And it's like the wedding is like a couple of hours and then you have your whole life.
Yeah.
And I've watched, some people that I know spend so much money on a wedding, and getting people to come to their wedding. And it's like, you almost missed the point of what the wedding was actually about. And I wish that we would just go back to like the core values, and not to say that you can't have like a big expensive wedding and also have an amazing holy marriage, of course, but what is really that day supposed to be about? Is it about the decorations and just the ceremony, or is it truly about joining you and your husband together, or you and your wife together as one?
This is true. It's a huge red flag when they're like, I want my wedding by the beach. The beach? Excuse me. Aren't you Catholic? Aren't you getting married under the church? Huh? Right. Excuse me.
Literally, though.
Huge red flag. Well, anyways, Savannah, unless you have any other closing remarks, we can wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Savannah, for coming and joining me and my wonderful show that has so many viewers.
I mean, I'm a viewer. Like, your video quality is so good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, we'll be reaching higher numbers as time goes by, as time flies by us. We'll push our faith much higher. Anyways, thank you guys so much for coming in and watching me and Savannah talk about very controversial topics, but very necessary topics as well. I did not expect to be talking about the vaccine so in depth today, but I'm gonna have to probably edit this a little bit extra. Savannah, thank you so much for coming in. I'll have your links down below, so if you want to check Savannah, her Instagram, you have a YouTube, right?
Yeah, but it's really lame. Sorry.
Okay, well, all the links that she wants you to check out will be down in the description. So make sure to go check her out. And all my links are down in the description as well. Go make sure to check those out too. But thank you so much for coming in. And
thank you
God
for
bless.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Stay holy. Bye-bye.